What's good? It's Boy Dude Reviews, and today we're gonna do a ranking of all 7 Disney Silver Age movies. Now, if you don't know what the Silver Age of Disney is, let me tell you. This age for Walt Disney Animation marks the return to making big-budget full-length films after the era known as the wartime era. Bambi was the final film from Disney before the wartime era began, and after that, they just released package films because the Walt Disney Animation Studios were losing money, and making these package films was a cheaper way to kind of make money without using too much of their budget in a way. And the era is marked by its beautiful animation with very distinct looking backgrounds. Most of them were kind of in the style of Mary Blair. Very soft colors, and the character animation in particular has more for like a softer look. A lot of the edges are a little bit more softened out compared to like the earlier movies. They look a lot more, it has this very soft look to it in a way, which is very appealing to the eyes, you know, because it doesn't look too distracting and doesn't make everything look very jaggery in a way. And anyway, let's do a ranking of all these movies from the worst to the best. Now, before I rank, I need to say that I don't actually hate any of these films. I think they're all pretty good, and even the last place one is good, but it's just not great, and I just prefer more than others just because I feel like the storytelling and like some of the pacing and like the characters, I just think the ones closest to the top do it far better than the ones closest to the bottom. So anyway, let's rank all 8 films in the Disney Silver Age from the very worst to the very best. Now, before I do this ranking, I obviously reviewed all these films before, so I would highly recommend checking out my playlist of the Disney animated feature films that I did. Go check it out, watch my full reviews of them, and then yeah, come back to this one. Anyway, on with the countdown. And at number 8, at last place, we've got Sword in the Stone. Yes, this film. Frustrated of living in a medieval mess, Merlin uses all his magical powers to change a skinny little boy called Arthur into a legendary hero. If you've seen the trailer, you've obviously been spoiled by the ending. The rest of the film is kind of okay, to be honest with you. I do like Merlin and Arthur's friendship relationship. I like the character of Merlin a lot. As I said in my original review, he does embody that zany version of Yoda from like The Emperor Strikes Back. He kind of reminds me a lot of him, and he's kind of got a bit of like old classic Willy Wonka, just this weird zany dude of a dude. Arthur, the first time I watched it, I didn't really like the character, but I think he's a cool dude, you know. You kind of feel bad for him, you just want him to just succeed in the world. And I will admit, I do like Madame, her character, her design. I liked her and Merlin's rivalry, but apart from that, this film is very dull looking. Like, I find the art style to look really simple and bland compared to the rest of this era of Disney animation. Like, a lot of the colors are very muted and dull, and this is a really dull, boring story. Nothing of real interest or impact happens, and it's just one of the most forgettable Disney films in Disney canon. That's why it's last place and at number 8. But with number 7, it's The Jungle Book, made in 1967. It being the last film Walt Disney produced before his death, the plot follows Mowgli, a feral child raised in the Indian jungle by wolves, and his friends Bagheera the panther and Baloo the bear try to convince him to leave the jungle before the evil tiger Shere Khan arrives. And I know this film is a classic and people keep praising this film, and it had a sequel and a live action remake that made over $1 billion in the box office, but this film does nothing for me. Every time I watch it, I kind of feel bored watching it. I don't really like the visual look of it. I mean, some of the backgrounds look pretty cool, and I do like Shere Khan's character design, but the rest of the designs just look so dull. Like, I don't know what it is, they just look kind of boring looking, you know. The backgrounds look fine, but then when it comes to the character designs, they're not that bright or poppy or anything like that, you know. They just look kind of bland and boring. But I will admit that Baloo is really funny, and I do like Phil Harris's voice acting. Like, he does a really good job as Baloo, really funny, really carefree. I love that voice. And you got the George Sanders as Shere Khan, and Mowgli is pretty, he's no different to Arthur in a way. Like, he's kind of that generic young boy, you know, character, like just nothing real interest. Like I do like Bare Necessities and that's about it. I don't like any of the songs. Like the funny thing is that I only watched this film just for that one Bare Necessity song. I couldn't give a damn about the other songs. Like none of them really do it for me, apart from that last song with the little girl singing to Mowgli. But apart from that, this film, it's another one of those Disney films that I like to skip. It's very dull looking, it's kind of boring. It was, I remembered it in my childhood, but I never got into it, and yeah, that's why it's at number 7. But number 6 we have got Alice in Wonderland 1951. Now compared to these two movies, this one is got a far better visual look. The visual style, the visual look is just beautiful looking, and it's just lovely, absolutely lovely. The story centers on Alice being this bored little 9-10-year-old girl while doing a history lesson with her sister. But then she comes across this white rabbit and chases it, and it leads her into the magical world of Wonderland. And I really do like the character animation of this film. It's really good, but I also think it's a little bit too zany at times, you know. Alice probably has the most subtle character like animation and movement, but everyone is just kind of bouncing off the wall, and it's at first it's fun, but it sometimes gets a little bit too ridiculous, and it becomes, you know, it's a bit, oh my gosh, you know, it becomes exhausting to watch, in my opinion. I also don't think there's really a story. It's just kind of a lot of random events and a lot of random stuff happening to this girl, to be honest with her, and I don't really know what lesson she really learns in this film. And it's just a bit like, I think it's just random things just happening for the sake of random stuff. You got a lot of weird psychedelic, like really like hippie trippy animation scenes and like colors in it, and it, as a kid, this film used to always make me feel a bit queasy because the colors were really bright and strange, and just, it has this weird look to it, you know, but in a good way. I like the visual look, but I think that's the reason why I don't like this film, because it's just a bit too zany and just a bit too much for me, you know. So that's why it's at number 6. The film mainly focuses on a female American Cocker Spaniel named Lady who lives in a refined upper middle class family and a male stray mutt named Trump, and it's kind of a little romance and a little bit of action and all that stuff that we all love. And yeah, I do like this film quite a bit more than the other films. I just loved all the character interactions, and I just love Lady, and just like getting to know the outside world a little bit more. All the side characters like Jock and Trusty, like the side characters are so much interesting and funnier and just a lot better acted, in my opinion. And I like how this film is like in the 21:9 like wide scope ratio. Like we get to see a lot more of the backgrounds when it pans, and the backgrounds look so nice and beautiful. It's a really pretty looking movie, and it has a very simple plot. It's just Lady getting to know the outside world and just all this stuff which I like. I like dogs, and that's a pro. And yeah, the reason why I guess it's not as high on the list, I don't really have a reason. It just feels like number 5 was just the best spot for it. It's not too low, but it's not too high at the same time, because the other 4 are just so much better in their own rights. And at number 4, we have got Sleeping Beauty 1959. Now the reason why Sleeping Beauty is at number 4 instead of like number 3 is that obviously the top 3 are so much better, but this film is a little bit better than the previous ones because those backgrounds just look really different to anything we've actually seen before. The detail and like the shapes and the positioning of the backgrounds just look very different and unique, and it has a very angular, edgy look to it overall, which I really liked. Like the backgrounds are super duper detailed. Like I flipping love the way they look in a way. I just like the character animation. I like the 3 fairies. They're all really cool and just unique. I love the witch. I love the dragon scene with the prince fighting the dragon. I thought all that was really cool and unique and brilliant. But this film is kind of a stole film. Obviously the reason why I like this film more than the others is because of that visual look, and I think it's just bumped it a little bit higher than like the previous one. I do like the story a little bit more than the other ones, you know. I like some of the character interactions, and I like the whimsical songs, and the soundtrack is all really great. And that final act, that it's because of that final act that it's really placed this high. But overall, this film is kind of substandard. Sleeping Beauty herself, Aurora, is kind of a boring character. She sleeps through half the film and she doesn't really do anything or do much. She just expects this dude to do everything for her. I think she's probably one of the worst role models in like any Disney film, and but it's a beautiful film. I highly recommend checking it out. At number 3, we have got Cinderella 1950. Obviously, you know this typical story of Cinderella. When Cinderella's dream of attending the royal ball and meeting the Grand Duke is hindered by her cruel stepmother and stepsisters, she gets some astounding help from her fairy godmother and goes to the ball. Yeah, I love this film so much. Like, I really like all the characters. The fairy godmother is witty and funny, and her character design is fun. But Lady Tremaine is the one that steals the spotlight. She's so evil and nasty, and just, I think she's a bit envious of Cinderella's beauty, to be honest with you. That's why she's always putting her down and making her do all the housework and chores. It kind of sucks. You feel kind of bad for Cinderella, you know. People would probably say that Cinderella's a bad role model, bad Disney princess. She only wants, you know, to dream to go to a ball and meet a handsome prince. But I mean, if you were in her situation and being like mentally abused by, you know, your stepmother and stepsisters, being picked on, bullied, like you'd want to like fantasize about something like that, you know. Like I kind of, you know, I feel bad for her in a way. And the music are all really great. I love all the songs like Bippity Boppity Boo, So This Is Love, Sweet Sweet Nightingale. Like they're all jams. I love the soundtrack. I love the little like backstory of Cinderella in the beginning, which was pretty cool and nice. And yeah, it's a really beautiful looking film. It was Disney's first successful film since Snow White, and yeah, it was back to form like for the Disney princess movies, and it's a beautiful flick that you need to check. Also check my full review out of this film as well. But at number 2, we have got 101 Dalmatians 1961. The film tells the story of a litter of Dalmatian puppies who are kidnapped by the villainous Cruella de Vil, who wants to use their fur to make coats. Their parents, Pungo and Perdita, set out to save their children from Cruella, in the process rescuing 84 additional puppies that were brought in pet shops, bringing their total to 101 Dalmatians. Now, this was the first film to be using the Xerox process of inking and painting traditional animation cells. Obviously, like the traditional way of like inking animation cells was kind of expensive, so they just used the rough animation outlines from the animators and just used that as the main outline of the characters. That's why this animation is a lot more rougher looking to the other animated films in this canon era. But I kind of like the animation style, to be honest with you. I think out of the whole Xerox era, like this is definitely the best one. I love all the characters. I love Pongo and Perdita. I think the story is definitely up there, you know. It's just so fun. It's action packed. It's got a lot of energy. It's so exciting. It's fun. It's just, everything about it is just so intense. It just leaves you on the edge. You want a lot more. And every time I rewatch this film, it just gets better and better. Obviously, it was definitely the one I grew up with the most out of all these films. It's the one I love the most. I love the character. I love Cruella. She's so evil. I love her two sidekicks. Everything about it was just so great. It's just, it's one of those films that you never get bored of watching. It's just so fun, and just that's why it's number 2. But I think the number 1 spot is just a little better, and it's a film I never grew up with. I watched it recently, and yeah, I think it is the best one in this era, and that's Peter Pan 1953. Peter Pan and his friend Tinkerbell, a fairy, whisk away siblings Wendy, John and Michael to the island of Neverland, where Captain Hook seeks vengeance against Peter for cutting off his hand. I think the reason why I like this film a little bit more is definitely the art style is much more unique than the first one. I think it's definitely the most maybe excluding Alice in Wonderland, it is the most colorful looking Disney film in this Disney Silver Age. I think all the designs work really well. The backgrounds and the characters merge really well to the point where the characters feel like they live in this world. Unlike a lot of the other films where the characters feel a little bit out of place, like I think the character designs work well with the backgrounds. They match in tone of color and just the vibe and all this lot. And I think every single one of these characters are also different and unique, from Tinkerbell, this jealous envy type, to Peter Pan, who's always, you know, hungry for adventure, to Wendy, who's always the straight one of the group, who's always very motherly, to her two younger brothers. The two younger brothers are also unique, you know. Michael's just so adorable and just cute, and John is this smart ass dude, and then you got Captain Hook, who's so evil and like funny at the same time. He's very campy, and Smeagol, who's his little sidekick, and I think Captain Hook is probably one of my favorite villains overall. I like his design, I like his rivalry with Peter Pan. It has that type of shonen element to it that I kind of like to it. It does remind me of a shonen anime at times, particularly their rivalry, which I liked, although it has that one really offensive What Makes a Red Man Red song. If you overlook that song, this film is just a really, really fun, action-packed film. It's got a lot of great comedy, great humor, great writing, great storytelling, great songs, and it's my favorite overall. That's why it's number one. But what's your number one? What's your number 8 of this list? It's just my silly opinion. Tell me below what your ranking of the Silver Age is in your opinions. But yeah, thank you for watching. Check out all my Disney feature film animated movie reviews, a playlist which I'm gonna show you on the video right now. And yeah, thank you for watching, and as always, subscribe to this channel for more rankings and reviews, and like this video. And as always, Aborted Reviews signing out.